So Austin's open. We're good. We're back. Like everything is back to being on point. Like it's been these past couple weeks have been like really good to us. I got a lot of friends that are bartending downtown. They're finally like it's really helping people catch up for a lot of like the lost wages and the missed work that was like occurred because of like last year.
Well, I'm all for people getting back to work, but we have to be smart. I'm all for people getting back to work, but we got to wear our masks. We got to be socially distanced. I mean, we're a little close, but we're vaccinated.
You are.
I've had one vaccine. I get my second one tomorrow.
I mean, I think.
And I feel like we're doing the right things, but we got to be smart about it.
I think my take on it is this, right? I think that Austin is a very I think you got to look at things on a case by case basis, and I think Austin's a very fit city, and we only had we never really had there was only one point really where we were worried about our hospitals being overwhelmed, and it didn't really seem to last for a very long time. So and I think that people here have been people died.
Lots of people died, and we can't. This is a worldwide pandemic, and we've got to be smart.
I agree. We should be smart, and I think that when it comes to that, right, our city should have done a better job of actually providing meaningful aid to the small businesses to actually encourage them to stay closed and follow the protocols. Because when you have all these projects that are being put into place that are going to raise taxes and raise expenses, and you're telling these operations that they can't work or operate, and you're not providing them with a just compensation for being closed, you are not really helping out your cause. If they really wanted to, if they really cared so much about public health and all that stuff, there would have been so many things that they could have done. They could have A, done a better job of encouraging extra people to exercise and go outside and do things to boost your immune system. B, they could have used some of that rainy day fund money or that money when they defunded APD to give it to small businesses, to give it to bartenders, to give it to people who are musicians, to give it to the music venues, to do all that stuff. They didn't do that.
I know that Travis County got our money out to small businesses. I know there was a lot of, it was back and forth. You can't get money from both the city and the county, but we did get the federal dollars out and get them to small businesses and to the small cities to do whatever they needed to do with them.
That's true, but was it?
We're getting a lot more federal money, which is very, very exciting.
That's good. That is good. And I heard people from the Texas Restaurant Association are pretty happy with that, which is another good thing. But then it's also you also look at what Adler's doing with the money. It's they're trying to spend $100 million more of this on homelessness.
Amen.
You think so?
Yep.
I mean, but it seems, though, here's my take on this, though. It seems like the more money you spend on this, the bigger the problem seems to grow.
Oh, no.
But that is kind of...
Because the money that we need to spend is on rental assistance, access to health care, job training, skill development, new jobs.
Okay.
And we're going to help people get off the street and stabilize so they don't return to the street.
And that all that stuff is well and good. But how much are we putting into that? Are we seeing any tangible results to that? And when it comes to, because I think we could be doing a lot more for supportive housing. There's so many even unoccupied apartments. There's a ton of apartments in Austin that are just unoccupied. There's no reason why you can't allocate some unoccupied apartments to help do affordable or supportive housing and do some kind of rental assistance, especially or if you prove that you have a job where you have something that you're doing, you're showcasing that you're improving your position in life. We should be doing a lot more to help people that are voluntarily trying to improve their position in life. I agree with that. We should be spending that money, but it just looks like from the way we see things that this money is just being thrown around and unaccounted for. Half of the
No. So the money that I know about that is used to help people get off the street into housing, connect to services or jobs or whatever will help that individual, whatever they want really, to get their life back on track. There's data that goes with it. There's measured outcomes. Do people stay housed? Do they gain income? And Austin does a really good job with the money that's focused, and it's actually contracted through the nonprofit community. Caritas, LifeWorks, Salvation Army, Family Elder Care, SAFE.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Sure, I get that. And there's a lot of good stuff that you guys do. But you guys have also been you guys have benefited a lot from the federal government and from the aid that you've got received. You've had these past couple years have been pretty good to you, haven't they been in terms of fundraising?
So the money that comes from HUD down to the Austin nonprofit community and integral care is based on our performance from the years before. We have to continue demonstrating that we're getting people off the street, they're getting a place to live, they're staying in that place, they're gaining income, they're connecting to benefits. There's a whole bunch of, red tape and HUD requirements in order for you to continue getting money.
Yeah, you got any success?
And we've gotten more money because we've done well.
Okay. Do you got any success stories you want to share right now?
Oh, I was thinking about some on the way over here.
Let's
when
share
we
one, 'cause I have some more like concerns that we're going to go on.
Yeah.
But let's share a success story.
A really cool experience was when we were using federal dollars coming to Austin that we competed for to get U.S. veterans off the street. And these were men and women who were down and out, had served their country, and were asking for help. And one man in particular, I remembered, he was a dad. And when he got his own place to live, his 2 teenage children moved in with him.
That's awesome. But why was
it was awesome.
But why, do you remember why he was homeless or what was happening?
I can't remember his exact story. I think that he battled
some addiction or something like that?
Some addiction issues and struggled to, what's often the truth is that once you've been down and out, you've maybe been evicted before, or you've spent any time in the criminal justice system for whatever reason.
It's harder to find housing.
It is very difficult.
And
so sometimes our programs allow folks that second chance.
And I think that stuff is good. And
it's really good.
I think that's good. And I got a lot of friends who work downtown, and a lot of bartenders, a lot of bouncers, a lot of people that working on 6th Street. That a lot of them have records, and they've done really well for themselves by being able to work in the downtown environment. My thing is this though. It's just when you have this unprecedented event that occurred, right? And you have
COVID?
Yes, we're talking about COVID. When you have an unprecedented,
we have several.
But when you have an unprecedented event, that could have really destroyed our culture. It could have destroyed our small businesses. It really has it's really had a really bad effect on our small business community and the musicians and the industry that makes Austin special, and so when you have a chance to allocate hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to help ease that burden, and then you choose to spend it on homeless services instead. I get the important need to help homeless people. I understand that, but when that is happening while these small businesses are struggling mightily because of the lockdowns and because of what Adler specifically was doing, it's gonna rub people the wrong way, I think. And I think that this is what we're seeing is a bad.
It has much to do with what Adler was doing. My thought is that it is a collective benefit when we end the suffering on the streets. It will increase the economy benefits, I believe. I mean, I think people have made the case the economy's suffering in part to, people not wanting to see, people experiencing homelessness.
Well, I think there's a bunch of other factors too, though.
And I also know that that folks that are stuck on the streets are cycling in and out of emergency rooms and the criminal justice system, our court system, our shelters, and there's a cost to that.
There is a cost to that.
So a lot of this is about trade-offs and timing.
Yeah.
We want people and businesses to succeed, and we need to get folks off the street, and I believe there's enough wealth and demand for services and business in Austin, Travis County to do all of this.
Sure. So I'll tell you though about about what you're saying about the businesses and stuff. And I said I got a lot of friends who are either part owners of bars or work downtown in bars and stuff, and they have said specifically that the presence of all the homeless people has decreased the amount of volume that their businesses has experienced, because a lot of people, they see all this stuff, and it's not just seeing poverty. It's worried about being harassed for money. It's worried about leaving your car unparked and somebody going through your car. It's a lot of other factors are kind of mushrooming, and it's causing a lot of people. My girlfriend included. Me and my girlfriend used to go downtown to get dinner a lot more frequently. We used to take walks down by the Congress Bridge and stuff. And I personally, I don't care. They don't bother me really one bit personally. But my girlfriend doesn't want to go out to dinner and go downtown because of all the stuff that she sees, or she's worried about her car being messed with or something happening. There's a lot of people that share those concerns,
And we need to address those.
You got to address
concerns.
those. It doesn't seem like our city's done like next to nothing to even acknowledge that. And it's like I said, the way that they've been responding to those concerns or being dismissive of it, it's rubbing people the wrong way.
I think it has rubbed people the wrong way, and I think, but we're not dismissing it anymore, or they're not. I'm a county commissioner.
Okay,
after 8 years of being the executive director of the Ending Community Homelessness Coalition, and so I've worked with people all across, different healthcare, housing, justice, transportation, and I think right now there is a collective will to spend the money to make the change. And we can't have it both ways. You can't say we've got to help folks get off the street, but we don't want to invest the money in it. This is an unprecedented opportunity.
Right, but you got to make sure that the investment is profitable, and you got to sell that investment as being profitable. And over these past 2 years, the city has done a terrible job of doing that.
Well, it's a new day.
Right. Well, but I'm just telling you, like, and I know that Loey and I talked about this before, and he was like, yeah, even Ann would agree, like, they did a horrible, the PR in terms of how they branded this and marketed it and how it was rolled out really was not done. It could have been done a lot better and a lot smarter, I think, you look at the and I know that they had these rules in place saying, hey, they're not going to be able to camp in certain areas, right? But now it's like, oh, you're camping by the creeks. Like, you weren't supposed to camp, like, on Cesar Chavez by, like, where the water is. Now you see a whole row of tents right by where the water's at. And so eventually, like, people are definitely going to get worried. I'm worried about it mushrooming to a point where it's out of control, and I think that there's a lot of factors in play that can get that.
That's why this opportunity right now is we must seize the moment, because we have it's a challenge, and it's nationwide. But we can handle the challenge we have here. The scope is one we can deal with. When you look at the growing population in the Austin Travis County area, the people experiencing homelessness is a number that we can deal with.
Sure, I get that. I'm a big believer in like balancing out situations and not letting things get out of control to one side. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, if we were in a situation where, like, we had, like, a super right-wing DA, or we had, like, a very right-wing city council, and you saw, like, a lot of suffering that the homeless were experiencing, or you saw, like, a few years ago when you had a bunch of cops pulling over, like, one homeless person, like, ganging up on them, like, nobody liked that, right? And I think that, maybe repealing the ban kind of occurred because people didn't really like how the homeless were treated under the old situation, and I understand that. But, like, I do think that under this set of circumstances where, like, you have a DA that's pretty soft on crime, and that's pretty also very understanding of, like, what a lot of people have to go through, and very much, like, doesn't seem like he believes in punitive measures, and seems like he's a lot more understanding about these things than other people. You have a totally new DA than we've ever had in history in our city. We have an understaffed and demoralized police department just as a result of what happened. I'm just saying this objectively, and I think that when you factor those two things in, I don't see Prop B really getting enforced too much, where you're really going to see a lot of these homeless people getting records or really being dragged through the system at the level that they were dragged through before, because of who the DA is and because of, like, there's less police officers being staffed, and then you have a different city council. I think that a lot of these factors in play, I think just repealing, I think the Prop B thing, all it's going to do is just create an effective, like, countermeasure, and that's all it's going to do, I think. That's my take,
Yeah, I'm just excited about the work being done across the community. We call it the Summit. Okay. Where the business community, the advocates, the healthcare community have come together to create a real plan and a timeline, and trying to raise the budget to be able to help folks get off the street and stay off the street. And that's the excitement about, April and May of 2021. It's not this election.
Yeah, I do think that you need to have some kind of a stopgap to not let this mushroom out of control, but I don't think that, like, that's the final solution. Does that make sense? Like, I think that there's a ton of, like, empty apartments that you could use to try to like build more
I don't know
affordable.
about your empty apartments. I think we often have here like a 95%, what do you call it, occupancy rate.
I thought it was. I had another podcast because it told me that it was a lot lower. So maybe I'm.
And I think it could be in the sort of different, they call them classes, I hate that word, of apartments. You know, maybe there's a lot of luxury apartments available. I think everything's pretty full. Or there could be apartments that need repair that might be empty. But the truth is that we're working hard with property owners, property managers, and building new affordable housing.
And I also think there's a lot of businesses that people are working from home now because of the pandemic. You might see a lot of places that like that offices might not get filled or something like that. So there could be a spot. I think you got to be careful about where you allocate those housing units, considering like the commercial district and stuff like that.
Everybody's got to live somewhere.
Everybody's got to live somewhere.
And,
but there's still got to also be input from the community as to where people go and how, and making sure it's done like equitably and fairly too. That's what I think.
I think so. And safety's important. I'm a mom.
Your mom, yeah. How old are your kids?
Well, they're old, but
I mean, like, they're like my age, right? Or
my
close?
Oldest turns 30.
Okay, so she's a little younger
on
than me.
Mother's Day.
Wow!
On May 9th.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, and but we all want to feel safe.
Yeah.
We want to, safety for our parents and our children and grandchildren.
Are you okay with would you be okay with your daughter? Like, would you be okay with your daughter like walking downtown by herself at like 1 a.m?
My 2 daughters live in New York City.
Oh, all right. So
and they're
okay.
out,
I grew up in New York City.
Yeah,
all right.
They're out, and my oldest daughter's in the restaurant business, and my second daughter is just switching jobs, but she's been a lawyer at the New York Legal Aid Society with people being evicted and whatnot. So my family is very in tune to what you're talking about: small business owners, people, dealing with rental issues. I think this is just a moment, right, where it's just like even looking at green jobs and, climate work. As President Biden said, this is a time to sort of not raise, but shape the next generation. And, I think across the country, we need to look at our housing policies, our access to health care, to job training and education, and the time is now to fix some of these problems.
Sure. We probably should have done something about that Permian Highway pipeline that's going through the Central Texas Hill Country. Do you remember that? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know
they
Biden
moved it.
Did they? I don't know. I don't think they did though. I know that Biden revoked the Keystone permit. If you revoke the Permian Highway permit, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know a lot of because I tried to canvass to stop that for a little bit, not too much, not as much as like a lot of these other activists, right? But I did a couple days where I did that, right? And I was going through like Blanco, Texas, and like Kyle, and like all these like other small towns surrounding Austin, and there were people with like Confederate flags in their lawn that were like super pissed about this pipeline. Like everyone was mad about it, no matter where you were on the political aisle. Like,
yeah.
You had like landowners and ranchers that were talking about how it was going to mess up the wildlife. Fishermen were like worried about like whether or not they were going to catch, being able to catch the same amount of fish or eat the fish that were in the water and all that stuff. So I think that like that's just been one of these environmental issues that I'm actually really surprised that like our city council wasn't a lot louder about. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they should have been a lot louder about like if you want to talk about an environmental issue, they should have been screaming on the top of their lungs about that issue. Like that is really bad. And then also, like, you want to talk about like climate change and the environment, like seeing what we're seeing downtown by like by the creeks and by Lady Bird Lake, and like a lot of the clutter and the trash and all that stuff that's happening as a result of a lot of these encampments, like that's not good for the environment.
Hold on. So
okay.
I don't want to blame all the trash on the encampments.
Sure, but there's a lot more of it because of it.
Also, tremendous use of all our parks and hiking paths and. People have been outside for a year now trying to cope with the pandemic. We had a lot of the cleanup programs that the city counts on or that we all count on not working because of COVID. I mean, there was a cluster mess, if you will, of things that have come together.
Cluster mess, I like that one. A cluster mess.
Yeah.
A cluster mess. I like it. All right.
That have sort of created the situation we're in. And it is time to undo the mess. And get people housed and connected to job. I'm really excited about the job component.
So what is the job?
Retraining folks. Well, with COVID dollars, what the federal government allows us to use the money to help people who were impacted by COVID.
Okay.
So just like small businesses. But it's also an opportunity to help get lots of people back to work. And so the city and the county, even before COVID, have made a commitment to getting, I don't know the exact number, but more people, into, good paying jobs.
Yo, speaking of which,
Yeah.
hey, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
But speaking of which, I read an article on KView about how there's a literal shortage of workers for restaurants and bars because of people that are like still getting unemployment. So if you really want to do that, one great way to actually address the situation is to get people from a lot of these small restaurants and small businesses to go where the campsites are and offer to train the homeless people to become dishwashers, to become busboys, to become bartenders, to become barbacks, to become waiters, to do all of that stuff. And they are literally begging people to go work at bars and restaurants. Like, this is a thing right now. Why aren't they like allocating tons of resources to just get the homeless to go to work in the restaurants? It's like that's what we should do.
We're talking about
Yeah.
it. It's a strategy, because nothing's free, right? And so when we're gonna work with folks to, get them access to housing and health care, everybody needs money. We all got to pay our bills. And so the concept of affordable housing is that you don't have to pay more than 30% of your income.
Yeah.
So we've got to connect people to jobs, job training, and benefits as they are available, so that people can not only pay rent but buy food and get around.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that if the restaurants or if the Texas Restaurant Association or if like the city partnered up with with the Texas Restaurant Association to like offer training to the homeless to like actually work in bars and restaurants, you're gonna see a lot of people get off the streets quick, because that's good money.
Yeah.
Like, that's real money. Like, you work as a bartender, especially now, you're gonna get paid.
Yeah.
And you're going to be okay. You're going to find a place to live. You're going to be able to pay your rent. You're going to have some disposable income.
Yeah.
This is such an easy, quick fix solution to doing this that I don't understand why it's not being implemented. Hopefully, you could maybe get that word around, because I think that would solve a lot of problems, just literally getting people from bars and restaurants to train the homeless to do this.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm getting animated, but that's...
a lot of the folks experiencing homelessness have skills. What, I want us to talk about them like they don't?
No, yeah.
Yeah, and so... there is that connection that we need to make, and there's also, you talked about stories at the beginning. I know a woman who was working at a bakery here in Austin, but she was experiencing homelessness, and she had to take her backpack every morning to the bakery, and she would hide it in the bushes because she didn't want her fellow workers to know
that she was homeless.
That she was homeless. And she would come back. We set up this temporary shelter for women. And she would come back with flour and olive oil all over, and she had worked hard. She got up every morning and got a shower and got off to work. And my point is that it is so hard to maintain a job and take care of yourself when you're stuck on the street.
No, I understand that, but she worked at a bakery. Do you know if she had any mental issues, or if she had any addiction problems or any substance stuff? Because that's...
I don't know. But she seemed great to me. We became friends.
So I worked, when I first moved here, I worked at an after-school program.
Yeah.
And I only worked 5 hours a day, right? 25 hours a week. And I got $11 an hour. And I was struggling, and it was really difficult. No, but I was able to. I paid my bills, and I figured it out. And I found one. I paid $500 a month for my room, or something like that.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
2014.
Yeah.
They had the ballpark apartments right now, which the city literally burned down demolished for the Project Catalyst, this new domain. So it is, that's another whole rabbit hole we could go down. But there's and I see places on Craigslist that you could still rent a room for $500 or $600 a month or do something. And I found this.
One of the challenges that folks that have been experiencing homelessness, that to compete in the rental market is difficult. Because like I said, we've got such a demand for housing here that if you have any blemishes on your record, you're easily dismissed as a potential renter.
I get that.
And so I'm so grateful to the landlords and property managers that work with ECHO and the other nonprofit organizations to partner up and get folks.
But I got a ton of friends who have records that have no problem finding a spot either, though.
Well,
so I think that there's a lot more opportunity than people give credit for. You know, like I think that there's like if you're in Austin, Texas, this is literally like the golden land of opportunity to to be something.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm doing pretty well for myself with pedicabbing and what. I'm very thankful and humbled and grateful for it. But I'm not like, I don't really have that many skills. Like I've never been good at anything in my life. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying this to fish for compliments, but I've literally like failed at everything I did. You know, like when I was in New York City, like I still live at home with my mom and dad, like in New York before I even came to Austin. And I came to Austin with like no money, nothing. Like being able to just ride this pedicab around, I've been okay. Like, and there's like a million places that are hiring. There's a million like opportunities to get a job. Like the city's growing so fast. Like there's always somebody that wants help and wants to hire you if you're willing to like actually work hard and grow and present value. So I feel like there's, I don't know, like there's plenty of opportunity. Like I feel like there's so much there's way more opportunity than like people are making it out to be, you know?
Well, great.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
should be easier to help connect people to opportunity, and I think you're saying is that why don't people just get up and take their bedroll and go get a job? And I think that by the time you find yourself sleeping on the streets for any period of time, I know some people do it real briefly and it's easier to get out, but if you've been out there for any period of time, you got some cards stacked against you. Your situation is probably more complicated than you and I are referring it to be, and so they need a little help.
Did you hear about the Aurora, Colorado mayor who spent like a week camping on the street pretending to be homeless?
No.
There was a mayor in Aurora, Colorado who spent a week camping, right? And nobody knew that he was a mayor at all. Like he just disguised himself, looked like a regular old like homeless Mike or something like that. They called him, you know. And he just said that like he gained weight while he was there because people were feeding him constantly, and that like all like the majority of the people that were it was just a drug den. Like when he set up his tent, like, and there was a row of people in the tents, like it was just a big drug den was what he basically described it as from being there. And yeah, like the way we did things before, it's not good, right? There's got to be a middle ground, but there's got to be an honest assessment about like allowing tents to get stacked up all down the street and down the city is not the way to solve this problem.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And you got to do something about clearing these tents off. Like, you got to clear these tents out for now. And actually, it doesn't mean the work is done. It just means, like, you got to hit the reset button, clear these tents out, and like, actually work together to come up with some of these solutions that you're talking about. Does that make sense, Anna?
I think it makes sense to get folks access to places to live, jobs, healthcare, and, yeah,
like seeing all these and also like you talk about the lady at the bakery, right? Mm-hmm. Like if she lived in a tent, like how do you know that her stuff is like if she has to go to work and she lives in the tent, how do you know your stuff's even safe?
She had to take her stuff with her. She wasn't leaving it in a tent. She didn't trust
exactly
anything,
yeah,
you know. And so
even if you're in a tent though,
a lot of people I think get then stuck in a circle of you got to stay with your tent to keep your stuff, you know, like,
and that makes it hard for them to get off the streets and do anything because
absolutely.
They're worried about their tent getting stolen, and then you wind up being homeless longer because you're stuck downtown and you're in a tent and you're worried about your stuff getting taken.
People need a safe and decent place to live, and I'm so happy to be working on that solution or those solutions.
I like the Mobile Loaves of Fishes thing that they gave them a bunch of money. I thought that was good.
Move forward.
I thought it was good that they gave a bunch of money to Mobile Loaves, which is really good.
Who did?
Like the city gave the city gave up a lot of money to Mobile Loaves, which is I think really good. But yeah, so that's why I think like maybe the tent stuff is actually could be making the problem worse though, because you know a lot of people that are out there on the street with their tents, like you don't want to leave your tent because there's a lot of predatory behavior that goes on in those encampments. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not like trying to say anything as like fact, right? But I would not be surprised if this was like if the mentality, because like a lot of people on the streets have records, right? They've been through the system. I wouldn't.
Some of them,
but there's
not all of them.
But there's definitely a sizable chunk of people who are on the streets that have been through the system, right?
I think they've been arrested for all different kinds of things.
You've been through the system.
Okay.
Yeah, you've been through
the system. You make it sound like they've spent years.
No. That's not what I'm trying to say. Like you've been through the system in a capacity, or you spent time in like county jail and you've gone through that stuff, right?
Trespassing.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. But there's I would not be surprised if there's like a level of pettiness in those areas that you see in the jails. And I also wouldn't be surprised if like you have certain homeless people that are preying on weaker homeless people. And I'm worried that the situation that you have in play because you have a DA that's like doesn't believe in like in punitive measures, which I think can be good in some areas like marijuana and other stuff. But like you have a DA that's kind of like a lot more lenient than any other DA has been. If you're like a homeless person, right, and you're like a victim, and you're being like bullied, or you're worried about like somebody like taking your stuff or trying to like extort you or do all types of stuff, which you don't know what, like, that stuff could possibly be happening, right, in these tents. You might be scared to say something because you know that the person who's like doing this to you is just going to get out in a day anyway and make your life worse. So like there's these other factors you got to
When we had a ban on camping, the police, what they told me is that they, didn't enforce a lot of these kind of what do we call them? Lifestyle or
lifestyle crimes.
Yeah, because it was just this cycle of just by the time you'd arrest somebody and take them to booking or whatever, they'd be back out before the police officer could finish the paperwork.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And it's just the cycle. So the goal I think is, it's not like soft on crime versus hard on crime. It's a recognition that we need to spend our public investment differently. We need to look, further upstream, if you will, and focus on the social determinants of health. Make sure people have, jobs, education, health care, a safe and decent place to live, good food to eat, so that people have the infrastructure around them, the scaffolding, if you will, to be their best self, to reach their potential as human beings.
I agree.
And then we can have less of this. Our whole country needs to turn the page and live anew in community and put sort of some of these old ways behind us.
I think in some capacity, yeah. I do think, though, like we were talking about, like I think that if you enable this too much, so you might start attracting people from other parts of the state or other parts of the country to come to Austin in droves, and that could create a more toxic environment for the homeless. Like, there's you don't want to make the solution to the problem worse than the problem itself. And I think that the way we did things, it's an experiment, and I think that ultimately we got to keep trying new things. And if an experiment is failing and people are unhappy with how it's going, like it's okay for like the city to say, "Hey, man, we messed up on this. This didn't work out the way the way we wanted to. We're gonna just try something new." That and I think that my issue is that they didn't.
That's exactly what's happening when you look at the summit that I talked about of the Downtown Business Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce, now working together with the Austin Justice Coalition and ECHO and the nonprofit organizations to say, how do we resolve this issue? What are the solutions? What do we need to bring, and what scale? How much affordable housing do we need? How much access, to new job training or to detox for someone with an addiction? What is it? What's the scale of the problem, and how do we pay for that?
Yeah.
We drafted this similar kind of plan back in 2017 when I was at ECHO, and the challenge was it was a lack of resources. Everybody appreciated the plan. We had it blessed, up and down, left and right, and we never saw the money materialize to scale the solution. And that's what's unique about this opportunity, is that I believe it's going to be okay with the feds to use a whole bunch of this money to get some of these things right.
Sure, that would be great if we fixed. If we look, as long as.
And we won't be the only community doing it. That's one thing when people say, "Oh, if we do this, everybody will come here." Well, I don't think that's the case, because San Antonio, Waco, Dallas, if you look at the federal dollars coming down to address homelessness or housing, they all get more money than we do. I don't know about Waco, but they get lots of federal dollars. And so I'm excited about that we won't be the only ones working on this issue.
Sure. And we got to also make sure the money's accounted for, because I remember I read a Statesman article about how $30 million of the $60 million that the city was going to put to homelessness got unaccounted for. Remember, like, Ryan Atula wrote a whole thing about that, like, last year. So, like, you got to make sure, I think that, like, in order for people to, like, you got to get, if you're going to do this stuff, you have to get the public on board with that. And you need transparency. And, like, our city has been horrible about transparency this past year, especially with the pandemic and the lockdowns, and there was, like a lot of double talk, what it felt like. You need to restore trust in your city officials so that people can go along with this. And right now, like, the trust in our city officials is at an absolute zero, pretty much, from what I've been gathering. So you need to restore trust in your city officials, and you also need to like you need to also be transparent about how that money is being spent, and you got to document that so the public can see that visibly.
So this is my first job as an elected official, and I'm very excited to be bringing sort of my commitment to outcomes, to results, to this work, so that I can hold others accountable, and I can look for programs that work. Let's scale up what works, and let's stop doing what doesn't work.
Yeah, like I think supportive housing works. Letting people camp in the middle of the street doesn't work. Like that's what I think, right? Or
Go
I think,
for it, yeah.
Yeah, like I think maybe forgiving. And when I met you a couple years ago, I was like, maybe if somebody was like gone through like whatever drug rehab, or they're doing vocational training, or they've had a job for a couple years, right? And they got like some delinquent utility debt. Forgiving that under those circumstances, that would probably work.
Yeah.
Right, like teaching like vocational training in a job that people need to work in, like the restaurant industry, which they're desperate to hire people. That would work. You know what I mean? So I think that there are a lot of solutions that work, but you can't just like die on a hill of things that people are furious about, which is tense. Like that's my take. Like that's.
And I know that's part of what you wanted to talk about, but that's the voters are going to speak about Prop B.
Yeah.
But regardless of the outcome of that election, the rest of us are at work to create opportunities for housing, healthcare, and jobs for, folks who have been relegated to the street.
Facts.
So let's get working on it.
Facts. And that's why we're having this discussion, so we can actually talk about this and having to be adults about it, because no one's an adult, especially on social media. Everyone's like, it's all extremes. Everyone's either like, hey, you're enabling vagrancy, or you just want to punish poor people and you want to jail. And like, there's a middle ground approach. We got to figure out what works and what doesn't. We got to have grown up conversations.
Yeah.
No matter what the outcome is, work's got to.
The other thing we haven't really talked about is, there's nothing perfect, but a lot of the folks on the street have asked for help, and what I mean by that is they've called Echo and said, "How do I get off the street?" And our response is, we got to do this assessment of you, and then we're going to stack you up against everybody else experiencing homelessness, and we're taken from the top of the folks who need it the most to who's most likely to die on the street. And that is a very long list of people wanting help. And until we get this commitment through this summit and all the different entities coming together, it's been sort of slow work. About 1,500 people a year that we've been able to help resolve their homelessness.
Yeah, and
so we've got to double that capacity.
Sure. And you know that I used to do paid medical studies when I first moved here?
No.
I did PPD studies for a little bit, right? And I made like $3,000-$4,000 a pop doing these things. Like when after my first, so I wanted to be a school teacher when I first moved here, right?
Aww.
I did, and it didn't work out, but I did my best. And there were some other circumstances that weren't really my fault. Didn't work, right?
Okay.
And because of that, like I was pedicabbing, but a lot of the money I made was going to school, like to pay for school. And so I came after my first year in Austin with no job. I had this dream and these goals, and everything seemed like it was falling apart. I had like $6,000 in credit card debt and $100 in like maybe like $1,000 in the bank, maybe enough money to pay 1 month of rent, right? And then I went on this website called PPD, Pharmaceutical Product Development, right? And they basically like they do clinical trials on people to see the efficacy of the medication, right? And I'm not like trying to say, hey, everybody just go be a guinea pig, but I called them. I had no drugs in my system, no tobacco, nothing, right? I was clean for 30 days, and I got into the study. They let you just hang out there for whatever the time period is. They feed you. You just got to make sure you take the medication, and they like take your blood, and they do all that stuff, right? But the first study I did, I made like $2,000 in like 4 days.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And then like I did another one like a few months later, and I made $4,000 in like 9 days or something like that. And then I did another one. I made another $4,000. I went to Europe with that money and like paid off all my debts and was like good, because those studies combined with pedicabbing, combined with working more, it just helps. So it's like there's so many opportunities to just go make like a quick buck that you got to do a better job of just communicating. Just an opportunity to just go get what's yours. And because if you do a study and you get $3,000, you're gonna find a place to live. You'll find a place to live for at least a few months.
I don't know. I know that a lot of the folks that that call my number, and people still call my cell number asking for help with housing, They have these very extenuating circumstances. They have children. They have debt, like you're mentioning. They have, an eviction on their record. Somebody has stolen their ID.
Yeah, that's
so
shitty if that happens.
We just have to work through that. And some of it, you're exactly right. That for a huge chunk of the population experiencing homelessness, they can resolve that homelessness with just a little help. They might, if we could go pay some back debt, or we could fix their car so they can get to their job, or help them out with the bus ticket. There are, and we probably need to do a better job at finding those easy to resolve cases, and get them back on their feet.
Because there's probably a ton of them.
We have prioritized, for good reason, the other end of the spectrum, the most complicated, because we know they're not going to resolve by themselves.
Yeah, and I think that maybe reversing that could actually do a lot of good.
Both, figuring out how to work both.
Because if you knock out the easy ones, then there's less of a pool to work with, and it becomes less overwhelming. Knock out the easy stuff first.
Exactly right. That's exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, Ann, what time is it? I think we've talked about a lot of what we wanted to.
It's 4:23. So let's wrap it up.
Yeah, we've spent a good half hour doing this, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, Ann, thank you so much for coming on. I didn't even introduce you. That was so unprofessional. But you're the county commissioner for Precinct 3, right?
Right. That's the western parts of the county, but it includes downtown. It goes all the way to Jonestown.
Damn.
You ever been to Jonestown?
No. Where is that?
Well, it's beautiful. It's like the Texas Hill Country. It's out. You go out 183 to 1431, and we've got Jonestown and Lago Vista. On the other side of the river.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's on
All
Lake
right.
Travis.
All right. Okay.
On the other side of the river, we have Briarcliff and Lakeway and Bee Cave and Valente. I got little communities all over the place. Down south, San Leona.
Nice.
Lots of stuff going on.
Now, how do we get in touch with you?
So my Facebook page is Commissioner Ann.
Okay.
And my website is annforcommissioner.com. No, I won the election.
Won.
I won. It's commissionerann.com.
Nice. That's all. Okay. And then Twitter's what? Ann Howard TX or something?
Yeah. Ann Howard TX.
And then Instagram is Ann Howard TX too?
That's right.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate this. And we're going to stay in touch, and I'm going to keep communicating with you. And I think that we got to keep communicating with each other no matter how this goes, regardless, right?
Let's talk about some of the successes.
Yeah,
6 months from now.
the communication has to stay consistent, and you got to keep everything going. I think that's the only way any initiative could ever work, right? No matter what.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much. Ann Howard, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right.